Welcome to Baseline Scientific. My name is Paul Scanlon and I'm going to show you what can be seen in the June night sky. Let's get straight into it with a look at the phases of the moon. We start the month with a waxing gibbous moon. Full moon is on the 7th. Last quarter is on the 15th. New moon is on the 22nd. And we finish the month with the first quarter moon on the 29th. Now, let's look at the planets for June. Mercury starts the month as a morning object and will reach greatest elongation on the 13th. Don't expect to see it too easily, as it will still only be less than 10 degrees above the horizon as the sun rises. Venus is also a morning object throughout June. It reaches greatest elongation on the 5th. Like Mercury, it may be hard to see as it's relatively close to the horizon, but at a magnitude of -4 it shouldn't be too difficult to see. If you get the chance, try and have a look on the morning of the 21st. Venus will be just 2 degrees south of Mars, so it should be a good sight. Well, as we mentioned, Mars is a morning object and is starting to become worth checking out. It will still be low on the horizon as the sun rises, about 15 degrees altitude. At magnitude 1.3, you should be able to see it visually, but it will probably be still too low for imaging. Jupiter is now observable in the early morning. Have a look in Aquarius and you should see what looks like a very bright star. At magnitude -2.1, it will be far brighter than the nearby stars. Unfortunately, it will remain low as it rises, but is always interesting even in a small telescope or binoculars. The sun rises well before Jupiter reaches the meridian, so it's still a bit early for getting the best observations. However, if you're observing in the early hours, do have a look. Saturn is now well beyond its best, at only just over 20 degrees above the horizon as the sun sets. It is also getting fainter and smaller as it moves away from the Earth. If you didn't observe it over the winter, then it will be some time before it's at its best again. Uranus is about the same altitude but further north as Jupiter is in the morning. You will need a small telescope to see it, as it's magnitude 6 and very small. Have a look just below the body of Pisces. If you're having trouble finding Neptune, start off with Jupiter. Less than a degree away lies Neptune. Again, you will need a telescope as it's magnitude 7.8. You won't see any detail, but at over 29 astronomical units away, it's a long way off. Well, we haven't talked much about Pluto, as it's very difficult to observe. But if you want to try, then June is probably the best time to do it. On the 23rd, Pluto is in opposition to the Sun, so it will be high in the night sky. Look in the constellation of Sagittarius with a reasonably sized telescope. It is only magnitude 14, so binoculars or a small scope won't be enough. If you can take an image, then do so again a few nights later and compare the two images. With any luck, you will see one of the points of light move slightly, and that will be Pluto. Now, each month we will have a look at a constellation that can be easily seen from the UK. We start with Cygnus, the swan. The mythology of Cygnus has been identified with several ancient swans. Zeus disguised himself as a swan to seduce Leda. Orpheus was transformed into a swan after his murder. There is also a mention of a son of Neptune, who was a warrior in the Trojan War. He was eventually defeated by Achilles, but Neptune saves him by transforming him into a swan. However it got there, Cygnus is easy to see in the summer sky. First, find Deneb, a 1.25 magnitude star close to the zenith. Then look for the stars forming a cross. The apex is Cedar at magnitude 2.2, forming the centre of the swan. One wing is Delta Cygnus at magnitude 2.9 and the other Epsilon Cygnus at 2.45. Albireo marks the head, some distance from the other stars. Within this area, you'll be able to find a number of nebulae that are worth imaging. But let's start with Messier 29. This is an open star cluster, easily seen with binoculars. It's not as impressive as some clusters. Its age is estimated at about 10 million years, as its 5 hottest stars are all giants of spectral class B0. Closer to Deneb, you'll find the North American Nebula. This is quite a large emission nebula, about 4 times the size of the Moon. Its shape closely resembles North America. Because it's an emission nebula, it will be red in colour when imaged. In fact, this red is due to H-alpha emissions. The gas cloud is being ionised by a nearby star. Which one has not been determined yet, but it could be Deneb itself. Close by is the Pelican Nebula, and is probably part of the same cloud complex as the North American Nebula. It is of particular interest as there are a number of young stars and even star-forming regions here. Have a look just south of Epsilon Cygnus and you'll be able to find the Veil Nebula. This is a supernova remnant, the outer envelope of a star that exploded sometime between 5,000 and 8,000 years ago. Imaging this will give more colours than the other nebulas. Analysis by Hubble has indicated the presence of sulfur and oxygen, as well as hydrogen. It is possible to see it visually, but you will need an O3 filter and a large telescope. It is a popular imaging target as it has a rope-like appearance and is high in the sky. Even if you don't do imaging, Cygnus is a good visual constellation. Its main stars are bright and easily identified. And as a backdrop, there is the Milky Way, stretching across the sky behind, giving a wonderful sight of countless stars when looking through a telescope. Well, that's it for this month. I hope you enjoyed the programme. We'll be back for the July edition, so I hope you'll join us then. I'll see you next month. Goodbye.